friends at Greenwood Chevrolet. How you doing? Hey, don't forget, coming up tomorrow, as we mentioned, we'll talk to Larry Kemp, and we'll also talk to two former players of head coach Ed DeGregorio, recently sadly passed, and Diane Rapich, now Diane Rapich Costco, and Dorothy Bowers, who was the all-time leading scorer with the YSU women's basketball program. That's all coming up tomorrow. We'll talk to John Quintana, and we'll talk to YSU historian Greg Gullis as well. John Quintana having the unique opportunity to play for Jim Trestle's ball clubs from the campaigns of 90 through 93, so he would have been involved in 3 national championship games. And we're going to go to the phone lines right now and bring in a special guest, because this guy has so many local ties, and including one with Jon Heacock, a former guest on the program. His name is Tom Manning. He is the second-year offensive coordinator, running game coordinator with the Iowa State Cyclones. How you doing, Coach?
I'm doing well. How are you guys?
Oh, we are absolutely well, you know, I got to be honest with you, Tom. We were talking off air, you and I think it was a day or so ago. I can't line up enough guests, brother, because there's not a lot of sports to talk about. I mean, I'm resorting myself to doing games and name challenges, and I thank Chris Emil Cheney for that. But thank you for being on our program. We appreciate it. Let's go back and look at some of your history. You were teammates at Mount Union with the Purple Raiders with current head coach Matt Campbell. What was it like being with Matt Campbell? And I think you two were on the Toledo coaching staff together from 2012 through 2015. Talk about your relationship with your head coach.
Yeah, you know, my relationship with Matt Campbell is actually it's probably a lot different than most relationships I think that people probably have with the guy that they work for. You know, I was actually a teammate of Coach Campbell's at Mount Union. And then I was also had the opportunity or the pleasure, I guess, of he was my position coach my senior year at Mount Union. And, you know, fast forward a couple of years, I was a graduate assistant for him at the University of Toledo before leaving, going back to Mount Union. Then he hired me back there when he became the head coach in, I think, 2012. And then we came over here to Iowa State and left for a year and came back. So I've been with him for a really long time. But he's a Northeast Ohio guy, and I think there's certainly a lot of similarities from just our backgrounds and you know, not only all the way through high school but through college, and then having the opportunity to work together for a long time. I think there's just a lot of similarities between the two of us.
So you guys are like brothers. How about you and Coach Heacock on different sides of the ball? How's your relationship between you two?
Yeah, you know, I think Coach Heacock is, you know, really when he came and joined us at the University of Toledo, you know, I think when Coach Campbell was hired, he was the youngest head football coach in college football history, and, you know, we were really young, and it was Coach Heacock had, you know, we had made a change at the defensive coordinator position, and we were able to hire Coach Heacock. And I think just as a guy who's been around football for so long and has really seen it and done it all, you know, I think he was just a guy that really came in and kind of steadied the ship for us. And, you know, we've just continued to develop our relationship, and, you know, it's been great to have almost in some ways, you know, he's a coworker, he's a really good friend, and, you know, I think for a lot of us, there's that the wisdom that he has that we're able to bounce ideas off. And obviously his kids are a lot older than most of our kids. I think he's been through a lot of those things, and he's been in some ways kind of a father figure or an uncle figure to a lot of us. You know, he's I mean, I live about 3 houses down from him, so I see him about every darn day, whether I want to or not. So, but he's the man.
You know, you talked about your days as a teammate with current head coach Matt Campbell at Mount Union. Purple Raiders, just, you know, what they were able to accomplish. Coach Karras, I mean, I go back and, you know, Tom, I look at his overall record. I'm like, is that real? I mean, and people don't talk about him because it was a smaller college football program, but you learned how to win under Coach Karras and what they were doing with the Purple Raiders.
Well, I think the thing about Coach Karras is that he's won football games, I think, in about every fashion that you can win them in, and he's done it with a bunch of different teams. He's reinvented himself from year to year, and I think that you know, I think if you're in coaching, I think you understand how hard coaching is, but it's even harder, I think, at to the Division III level. It's really hard in the high school level. And some of the best coaches that I've ever met and been around have been at those two levels because you can't really pick your players. And, I think at this level, I think, it's a little bit different. I think where you had the opportunity to go out and at least recruit to your system. And I think what I respect and admire probably most about Coach Karras is just that he's done it so many different ways and he's changed and he's really evolved and really recreated himself year after year after year, depending on who he had, and always done it creatively. And really what he's done there is, it's incredible. And for my money, he's still the best football coach that I've ever been around. And you can make the argument that he's one of the best of all time.
Do you think Coach Karras could have gone on to bigger and better things, or do you think it was just his situation where, you know what, it's okay being a big fish in a small pond. I'm staying right here in Alliance.
Yeah, to me, a really good football coach is a really good football coach, and I think Coach Karras would have been successful no matter what he decided to do in life because he's an extremely intelligent man, and he's really good at everything that he does. And I think that's a sign of a good football coach in general. Is that you can take what you do and you can go to any level and apply it the best that you can and see what comes out of it. I think he'd be successful with whatever he ever wanted to do.
No doubt about it. Iowa State was a program that you were involved with before, and now you finally come back to Ames, Iowa, and you did this last year. So you spent a year in the NFL with the Indianapolis Colts. I believe you're the tight end coach. And that's ironic, too, Tom. Let me ask you first about your first trip with Iowa State. You were there in 16 and 17. You were very popular, and people liked you at Iowa State and didn't want you to leave for the NFL. Why did that come about for you?
Yeah, it was really something I wasn't really looking for. It was something I've always been interested in, but the timing of the year is something that was really brought to my attention. And the guy that I played for actually at my union was the offensive coordinator, Nick Sirianni, and they approached me about trying to do some things in regards to a little bit of things in the college game. And for me, it was just an opportunity that I thought, man, it'd be a great chance to go see what this league's all about, learn a little bit about football, and really, I've never backed down from a challenge. So I thought it was a good chance to see what it was all about, and really enjoyed it, and it really taught me quite a bit. And after being there for a year, it was kind of a really weird deal and just a unique situation where the opportunity arose for me to go back to Iowa State. Just at that time, I just felt like that was the right thing to do, and certainly enjoyed the National Football League, and it was very good to me. But just at that time in my career, I thought it was the right thing to do.
Boy, and your tight end, Eric Ebron, Pro Bowl season in the year that you're coaching tight ends in 18. And plus, you had an opportunity to go to the postseason with a 10-6 record in the NFL with the Colts in 18. Looking back on that experience, was it a great learning tool for you as you go back into college again?
Yeah, and I think from a lot of different viewpoints, probably as well. I think the game in the NFL and the college game is extremely different. I mean, there's obviously it's football and it comes down to blocking and tackling and taking care of the football. But I think there's even the dimensions of the field. There's so many things that are different in that game. They get played a lot differently. But I thought, for me, it was a great opportunity to grow in regards to some of the things in fundamentals and techniques, and maybe different ways to attack defenses or different ways to see things. And for me, it was a great chance to grow, to just be away from the same system that I probably have been in for a long time. So coming back here was great. I think they're part of leading for you that I really enjoyed. I think it taught me a lot about how to coach maybe a different style of player, and being in the National Football League, I think that you really do get the opportunity to talk to and coach guys that are, number one, all different stages of their career. So I think there's unique things that come about with each one of those things. And, it's also really interesting to coach guys that make a lot more money than you do. And,
Yeah.
and to be in different levels on the food chain there, and to understand that if you had the ability to help them and help them in their craft to become a little bit better, that man, oh man, you have their ear and you have their attention. And I think it was certainly a challenge because every day you got to bring it. I think it prepared me to be a better football coach as I move forward.
We're talking to Iowa State offensive coordinator Tom Manning, who was formerly with the Mount Union Purple Raiders, and he sang the praises of one legendary head coach, Larry Karras, who coached him up when he was playing college football. Talk about the NFL and the challenges and the big money these guys make. And I've been hearing this, Tom, the difference between college and professional at the coaching level, even at the playing level. It's not so much the strength of the game, it's the speed of the game. And everybody's an all-star at the NFL level, even the worst of the teams. There's really not all that much separation between the athletes and what they can do on the field.
Yeah, I think there's the speed of the game is one thing. I think just the, there's not going to be many blown coverages. There's not going to be many extreme advantages in regards to the tactical part and the scheme part of what happens in that league. I think there's not as many errors in that sense, and the level of talent is going to be closer in every single game. With that being said, there's also some rules that are just different. I mean, the pass interference and what it is to touch receivers, from an offensive perspective is different. But certainly, like you alluded to, there's so many good players that, man, at any point in the National Football League, there's somebody on defense that can ruin the game. And it's certainly something to be mindful too. But yeah, it's different. And these guys, these guys are grown men. So I think, they're different points of their career and just different style, but it's certainly enjoyable, and it's just different. And you can see why people like both, and you can see why people gravitate towards one or towards the other.
And what's also interesting, Tom, and going back and doing some research and background about you, you also coach at the high school level. I believe it was about 14 years ago in 2006. You were with the Massillon Tigers program coaching the offensive line. So I'm looking at your resume here. I mean, you've coached at the high school level. You've coached at the collegiate level, moving your way up through the ranks. You've coached at the professional level with the Indianapolis Colts, as we mentioned. But your diversity and coaching offensive line, offensive coordinator, doing this, doing that, that's going to be a big advantage to you in understanding all aspects and all the moving parts of an offense to be successful.
Well, and I think that's probably the Division III mentality that we have as a whole here, and kind of the way that we were brought up. I think it's important to have an understanding of what every position on the football field is supposed to do and how they're supposed to do it, and having the ability to coach those players. Obviously there's intricacies of maybe defensive back that if you haven't been privy to coaching it'd be a challenge, but to have the base understanding of what each person's supposed to do and how they're supposed to do it, and then to be an expert on those things on your side of the football, I think just help you as you go along, and particularly when you're into a leadership role, whether it's a coordinator or the head coaching job. You understand not only what those players are supposed to do, but maybe some of the challenges or limitations or struggles that the position coach would have in regards to those positions. I think more importantly, probably where it helps you is just to have an understanding of what you're looking for in regards to the talent level. When you talk about recruiting student athletes, like what does it really take to play this position to a really high level, and to have an understanding of that as a whole offense. I think certainly, obviously, like you just said, the more diversity you have, the better that would be. Yeah,
and that's something, Tom, that you've certainly displayed. The offensive coordinator with the Iowa State Cyclones, Tom Manning, on with us. Let's take a look back to 2019 and your second visit back. First time back and the second time and the second roam around for Tom Manning. Boy, what a high-powered offense. Just looking at some of these numbers. First of all, the Cyclones get to a third consecutive bowl game. And you're playing in the vaunted Big 12 conference. You're playing with some great schools out there, most namely Oklahoma. But you averaged 444 total yards per game, and that shattered a 44-year-old record that had stood since 1976. So when I see this, And then I check and see who the offensive coordinator is, and his name happens to be Tom Manning. And you guys just broke a record that it stood for 44 years. Tom, what a feather in your cap, brother.
Well, I appreciate it. Yeah, I think we're really fortunate that we have a really good quarterback right now, and for us, we've really won a bunch of different ways within our career, and we've run the ball a lot. We've kind of been balanced, and this year, we played a lot more balance as the year got on. We lost a really good running back the year prior to David Montgomery, who was drafted in the third round of the Bears. He's an Ohio guy out of Cincinnati. And we also lost a wide receiver the year prior to. So we really lost about 70% of our offensive production. So, we kind of really relied on our quarterback to really take the reins this year. It just happened that we had to throw it a little bit more than probably we were used to. But we were pretty good at throwing it. So there's a lot of different ways to win. And, I think part of the coach, part of our job is to find out what the best way to win with what your players can do each and every year and then each and every week.
Yeah, we're having a little bit of trouble with the connection. Hopefully that'll clear up there. Hey, Brock Purdy's the quarterback you talked about. Almost 4,000 yards a year ago, 27 touchdowns, 11th in passing offense, and one game, too, against ULM. Your offense generated, and I can't make this stat up, it sounds like a video game, 714 total yards of offense. You guys were explosive last year.
Yeah, there's one of those games where it's actually a couple things went wrong early on, but then after it kind of got going, that just one of those days where it kind of went the right way. And I think you do it long enough, you're going to have some of those games on the good side of it, and you do it long enough, you're going to have some of those games on the bad side of it. That certainly was a fun one for us. But just trying to be consistent every week and trying to find ways to move the ball down the football field and ultimately get points, and doing it without trying to take too many chances where we might have the opportunity to turn the football over. So just trying to be intelligent with how we attack every week and really allowing our really good football players to have a chance to win the game for us.
Tom, Ohio State's going to be looking to fill the running back void, whether it's with Dobbins departing for the NFL draft, whether it's Master Teague or someone else, or they got a big transfer coming in from Oklahoma. But last year, too, you guys were looking for an upgrade at the running back position, and it came from a freshman who ran for nearly 900 yards. Brees did a great job and made second team All Big 12. He was a big boost to your offense with Iowa State.
Yeah, he was. It's difficult to make the transition from being a freshman or from being a high school senior into being a freshman and playing some meaningful games and meaningful snaps. And really, Brees really didn't come along till about midway, a little bit short of the midway point, where he really started to play good, really started to practice well, and I think some of those growing pains early on probably kind of held him back a little bit from being the kind of player that he really is, and he's a really special football player. And I think as he kind of started to get his feet wet, get a little bit better, I think we felt even more comfortable offensively, and we were able to be a little bit more balanced in what we were doing, and we started to really play at a high clip once he got going.
Now, are you hesitant to go with a true freshman at any point? And it's got to be a maturity thing. And I don't know how quick it is that you recognize, well, he can handle it.
Well, I think that each position's different when you speak, and each kid's different. The likelihood of a guy that, maybe you're asking to go into a football game and cover somebody man-to-man for, 10, 15 snaps a game as a true freshman, that's different than being a true freshman left tackle and having to block a grown man for 80 snaps a game. So I think each position's different, in regards to how much they can handle and what they can handle. And on top of that, I think it's also just what kid. We have our quarterback is a really good player. He came in 2 years ago as a freshman, as a true freshman, and about midway through the year ended up playing. We didn't ask him to do too much, but he was really good for us. But I think you go back into his background, he's super mature, comes from a tremendous family, and phenomenal student. So each kid's going to be a little bit different in what they can handle. I think the thing that we pride ourselves in, we'd always rather play a player too late than too early, because I think we feel like if you play a guy too early, it can stunt his growth ultimately down the road.
That's interesting. Brees Hall, somebody definitely to keep an eye on, 6'1", 205. He tips the scales at coming off an electrifying freshman season, and somebody that Tom Manning, as the offensive coordinator with the Iowa State Cyclones, is going to be depending upon. Last year, 8-5 record. But one of the things that you had to be really proud of, too, and by the way, you've done such a great job, and the offense was so prolific. You were a top 40 finalist for the second time for the Broyles Award, which is an award that's given out to recognize college football's top assistant coach. So first of all, Tom Manning, congratulations on that. This is from me. All right. But one of the things that you had to be proud of, too, and this drives a coach crazy on the offensive end, turnovers. Am I reading this right? And I think this is in school. Did you guys only have 10 turnovers all campaign last year?
I think on offense, yeah, it might have been maybe just a few more. You know, in the year prior to, or 2 years ago, I should say that would be what, I don't know what year that was. We actually had we went through. So we played in, that'd been what, 2017. We fumbled the football in our bowl game on our second to last drive, going in the end zone. I don't know if it was a fumble or not, but we would have been the only team in college football history to play the entire year without losing a fumble.
That's unbelievable.
We didn't do it. We didn't do it. So we turned it over. I think total as a team last year it was 15 times, I think, and as an offense, I think it was 11. So we were pretty mindful of the football.
And that's going to be so important for allowing the drives to continue on and everything. Tom, when you're scouting up an opponent from the offensive perspective, you watch a lot of film, you watch a lot of tape, and I imagine technology's changed things for the better for you. But can you immediately pick out upon film, it's like, okay, we're going to attack this guy. Are you attacking individuals, or are you attacking schemes more offensively?
Yeah, I think it's probably a combination of both. I think when you start into I think when you start in general, there's a DNA of each defense. I think finding what this team does, what do they want to do, what's their structure in every situation. In a game, what happens on third downs. How do they change? Where do they change on the football field? Where maybe their strategy has gone from being a little bit more passive to maybe they're aggressive and they blitz on this certain side of the field or whatever that may be. So I think first of all, it's just trying to find out what the DNA of the defense is, the defensive coordinator, from a structural standpoint. Then secondly, it goes into, okay, who are the people? Who are their players? I think a lot of times you find the answer in why are they doing what they're doing based upon what their personnel is. Maybe there's somebody they're trying to hide. Maybe they feel really good about, they feel really good about protecting this guy or letting this guy play man-to-man. So, I think we have to find who those players are every week. That number one, that they feel they're really good players. Who's the person that can ruin the game for us? And then I think on top of that is who can we take advantage of from a defensive standpoint. So it's finding a blend of those two answers, and then trying to find the best attack, not only on how to attack them, but also really to have a counter to what are the things that they're going to do to us. So it's certainly one of those things where you never quite know if you're always going to have the greatest plan of all time, but you try to find your way to get as close, push the needle as close to being successful as you possibly can.
Tom Manning, I think college football is evolving. Back in the day, and it lasted for decades, every conference had their own reputation. It was ground and pound in the Big Ten conference. The Big 12 was this, the ACC was this, the SEC was this. But I think everything's starting to catch up now. And I think you find if you look at college football, the programs are starting to go into one big melting pot, and you could have a passing offense in one conference where it used to be ground heavy and vice versa. It's changed.
Yeah, I think just the evolution of football in general, and I think even you look at just the globalization of football a little bit in regards to what's happened with the internet. Kids will go anywhere from anywhere. I think the identities change within conferences all the time. We played in a conference that has been pass heavy and spread offense for a long time.
Yep.
I mean, we played with 2 or 3 tight ends 50% of the time. So I think every team is a little bit different. And it changes. Yeah, there's certain things that are just maybe a little bit characteristic of the historical sense, like, the Big Ten that obviously everybody in Youngstown knows. There's still elements that feel like the Big Ten, but when you watch it, there's a lot of spread football and different things going on there, too, that maybe didn't go on there in years past. So it certainly has changed, and I think it's going to continue to change and evolve. And, you're even seeing, since in the last 10 years, you're seeing a little bit of a cycle where it's going back to maybe where it was in the change of being a spread offense. People are kind of tightening back in now. So it's always constantly changing to whoever has the pen last usually is the winner. So
I love it. And Tom, if I might ask you, and you're probably not into predictions, but boy, you had that powerful offense last year, and Brock Purdy was lighting it up. Any predictions for 2020? Are you confident? You happy? You got a good feeling going in?
Well, I know we'll work really hard, and especially with our players and our coaching staff, and then and for us, we'll just we hope we're good. I mean, we don't know. We kind of don't really worry too much about the results. We're a little bit more process driven operation here, so I know we're going to put our work in. We're going to spend our time doing it the way we think we should do it, and whatever happens will happen.
Well, Tom Manning, I can't thank you enough for being our guest and taking time out of your busy schedule. Hang in there with the corona, brother. I know it's boring, it's not fun, but hopefully things get back to normal soon.
All right, appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, that's Tom Manning. He is the offensive coordinator with the Iowa State Cyclones. And, of course, he's working out there with Jon Heacock, a former guest on this program.